Hey, folks, welcome to the Salty Seaman and another edition of Tales from the Fleet. This one does come from a very hard, sad heart. This is like me remembering memories of a good friend I had at one point. You know, very important to me in my early days, first enlistment on the USS Blue Ridge. You know, I don't have to go back and listen to my old, different tales I've done to know I've mentioned Devlin several times. But letting you know, Joe Devlin was a friend of mine. He was an RMSN. He came on about 6 months after me. He came in with, one of my best friends from the ship, Brian Roth, who I've done stuff here on this channel with and mentioned a lot. Joe was kind of the yin to my yang with him, in terms of people kind of corralled him and, the people willing to deal with him, I guess. Like me and Joe weren't like super similar personalities at all, but we were two different personalities that could get along very well. And also two guys that, Brian and all his weirdness, could get along with as well. And, just kind of, that was part of it. But, like even going back to thinking about, on the USS Blue Ridge, 1996, I know it was about 6 months ahead of him, exactly where we ever actually met. I have no idea. I would assume the smoke deck. We were both big smokers still, I still am. I don't know what he was, but, that's where a lot of my memories of him are anyway. So it was either through Roth or just hang on the smoke deck or, however that all ended up working out. But by the end of the year 96, I was cranking, and so was Joe. Joe was, he was working night shift. I was day shift. We were both in the galley, and we knew each other, I think before that, and we would cross paths, both smoking. We'd take smoke breaks together and both in, in the kitchen in the mornings and evenings, and we'd listen to music and stuff, and Joe was like, kind of the early day of us, all us first termers, like, in the military, when you're on your first ship and you're that you're going to be friends with a lot of people from a lot of different departments who are just in the same boat as you. Like you're all fucking new. Most of us are like around the same age. We're early 20s. Joe was like, not even like a little bit older. He was a bit older. He was like almost a decade, and he looked older. I always, it was always kind of like, he was called Pops for a lot because he was fucking 28 years old and we were 19. If I'm doing my math right, I'm sorry if I'm not. Apologize. But he was a different kind of cat, and like he could talk to you. He had no problems hanging out with younger people at all. In fact, he seemed to like us more than people more his age. But there's a rank issue there too. And I know he had a lot of friends who were like a lot, like chiefs and stuff. Like they were like really quiet on the side just because they were the same age. This New England guy who was like, came from a, Catholic background, had a lot, he had a lot of life experience in those years between 18 and, joining the Navy, compared to most of us. And, and he was just a cool guy to talk to, and he just like fucking talking to us, and it was just like, he was never a thing. It was just like, hey, it's Pops, it's fucking old guy, blah, blah, blah. We laugh. It's like, like we literally had, any issue I had with Joe was, my sense of humor versus his and how he grew up. And, two different eras, I'm a fucking jokester. It's like, it's my go-to fucking for everything. Always has been. Your mom jokes, stuff like that I've been doing forever. Like, I don't personally take offense to it. And it's one of those things where like, I just kind of sometimes forget like not everyone is like me. And, for the most time I get away with it and everyone's like, how you lob back and forth. And, early point, hanging out with Joe, it was like, I make a mom joke and he was like, makes a fucking very pointed point to me. Like, nah, don't do that, dude. And he wasn't like he got fucking violent or, super angry, but he was just like, hey, I know you don't know me, but now I'm telling you this. And I was like, oh, okay. But, just being my dumb ass, I think at some point another one blurted out and he was just like, literally see him biting his fucking lip, and I'm like, okay, I gotta really fucking stop this because Joe's not fucking kidding about this. I don't want to fucking piss him off. I get it. Like we had long conversations about it, and I tried telling him, I was like, dude, if I do it, I swear to God, I don't mean it. Cut me off if you got to, whatever. And it's like, dude, I understand you. You know, I hang out with Roth. You guys fucking, you're jokesters. I know you don't mean it, but dude, I'm not cool. You know, it was a good conversation. He's an older guy, and it wasn't even a matter of like, talking down to me as like a younger kid is no shit. It was like, hey man, let me explain some shit to you. Like, I've been around a minute. There's other people not like me, blah, blah, blah. He was that dude. He always was that dude. He could talk to anybody. Joe was just like, he was just that dude. And like, it's like, we always liked him. And like, when you're going through the mess food service, FSA, mess cranking, whatever you call it, I'm working like the worst part of it, deep sink. It's a long ass day, but I see him at the beginning, I see him at the end, and he was this guy that got, none of us, that aren't trained mess cooks, sea cooks, whatever you want to call it. At the time it was called MS. We're allowed to touch knives, we weren't allowed to cut this and that up. Like as far as the entire time I knew working with Joe, he was doing that stuff. Like they just, as soon as he walked in the evening, they had him like chopping up fucking bacon and whatever not for, breakfast the next day, whatever they need prepped because they trusted him. The older people in there like talked to him and like, he had a litany of jobs he'd worked before the Navy, including short order cook, I believe. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I believe he did. And they were just like, and he was just like, yeah, I absolutely know how to use those fucking knives. I don't have the technical requirements for it, but I'll just fucking do it. If you leave me alone, let me do this shit, I'll do it for you. And he did. And they trusted him to it, and we didn't say shit about it. I'm now letting out of the bag 25 fucking years later, where the fuck it is. Navy, go, write up a fucking report or something. I don't care. But that was Joe, man. I mean, it was, he was a hard rock guy, man. And like, I'm a hard rock guy. And it was like, that was a lot of our conversation too, was just talking about what we liked in music and what we didn't like. And, he had a lot of different opinions for me. And it was like, when my first time running, it was like running into that old classic rock guy who just had his fucking limits. And it was like, my biggest one I remember is like, I'm a gigantic Black Sabbath fan, including, pretty much all eras. Joe was a giant Black Sabbath fan, but an Ozzy guy, including both solo and I love Ozzy solo too. But I'm telling you, he's an Ozzy guy to the fucking bone. Not a fan of Dio, no matter what he's doing. But it always bugged me. And I was like, how can you like Sabbath and not appreciate, Mob Rules or fucking, Country Girl or Sign of the Southern Cross? I was like, what? It's like, listen to these riffs. And he's like, I can't. I was like, I don't understand. Like, and he would get mad and like we would argue and stuff. And, I'd bring up whatever. But, yeah, that was it. And it was like, Van Hager versus Van Halen, and I get different opinions and, whatever his opinion on modern music. But he was a guy willing to listen. Like, and that was always a thing. Like, I changed his mind on a few things. He turned me on to a lot of things as well. And, that was always cool. It was like, the picture I have is like the one picture I know of just me and Devlin. I probably put up with this video. I think the joke in the video, like we're like grabbing each other's heads and like we're being silly. I think it was like, act out like, Gabe said something about your mom. Brian Roth is the one who took the picture. And and I think that's what it was of it, because I think maybe it was like a hot issue at the time. I don't know. But like overall, like, yeah, no, we didn't have any issues. It was just fucking Joe. And, he was a guy, he wasn't a partier, he wasn't a guy like I was out with, out in my younger, wilder days. He's an older guy. He'd done that shit. He was looking for, he was looking for a girl. He was looking for a family. And I remember that it was like a lot of, just shitty luck with him and just, his self-esteem. And it was just like, anyone who really knew Joe was like, knew what a great guy he would be for anybody who was smart enough to pick him up. And, it's see years later after I left the Blue Ridge and, our command together, he did find that, he found, a new family, wife, stepkids, his own kids, not putting any, nothing about that, just all together, he made a family out of that. And like, that's all I ever see from that is like, and that didn't surprise me at all. That was Joe. That was always his personality. He didn't want to be out, banging different girls every night. He wanted one girl. He wanted one family. He wanted a steady job. He wanted just to fucking be, he just wanted to have a fucking nice, normal life. And, and he was a cool guy, and we had nights out sometimes too, cranking or otherwise, I was talking a little bit on Facebook, I think we had a couple nights where we ended up like, take babysitting, Roth for his mouth or whatever. I think we both had nights where we babysitted each other back from, the haunch or the A club, or just, like a three-legged race. We just attached to each other a couple times just to make sure we could walk straight. And other times where, one or the other helped the other. And that was always Joe. I mean, if I ever saw him, I would never, ever feel like, oh, anything other than, oh, thank God I'm seeing Joe Devlin. And he would do that. And, he was going to help me out. And I would do exactly the same to him. And, yeah, I think that's about all I got to say about it. I was break down bubbling and stuff, much love to his family and friends. Al Sidebottom, he was the best man at your wedding, another shipmate of mine, another radio man from the day. Especially sorry for your loss. I know how tight you guys were. And of course, the personal tie to this, other than my friendship with Joe, my friend Brian Roth, great fucking friend of mine for, one of my best friends for 20 something years, and just kind of us exchanging stories over the last day or whatever. Hard to get an emotion out of that motherfucker sometimes, but love you, brother. Anyways, it's all the Salty Seaman has for now. Next time I up this channel, who knows? We'll see what's going on in the future. But I love you guys and take care. Peace.